The idea of a cozy game is one that's ever morphing and never quite nailed down. For some, cozy games are simple, pastel farming sims with romanceable NPCs. For others, there's nothing more relaxing than knocking zombies out like empty beer cans. Despite the varying tastes of each player, the term cozy game will likely bring up a softer, cuter image in your head. Puzzlers with beautiful, engaging stories, sims of all types, and plenty of crafting mechanics have taken over the scene. We've watched casual, soft, calming games turn into an interest of their own. But where are we going? What's next? The game industry is always being flipped on its head, for better or for worse, and cozy games are evolving at a pace quicker than you'd expect. Since I enjoy watching paint dry and counting blades of grass, I thought I might explore the genre's future today. If you were a Price is Right superfan at the ripe age of 7 too, you might also find this interesting. Grab your crystal balls because we are going to look into the future of cozy gaming and maybe even be right about it. Without further ado, let's get started. I'm not going to sit here and give you a detailed description of what a cozy game is because you know. I love needless exposition, but this would be overkill even for me, so I'll spare you it for now. I do, however, think looking at the past is important in predicting trends, so we're going to slide back in time for just a second. The development of cozy games as a whole is a bit hard to track, as the term is one that's still fairly new. We can still create a pretty good timeline though, and it can give us some interesting information. Get out your bingo cards, please. If you thought I would mention Harvest Moon, mark off a square. You know what? No, just use it as your free space. Harvest Moon is often considered to be the starting point of the cozy game phenomenon, with the first title releasing in 1996. The game was one of the first life simulations of its kind, predating the original Sims and Animal Crossing by a solid few years. We could, however, move backwards a bit and start our timeline with Little Computer People. Little Computer People is a pet person style PC game which was released by Activision in 1985, a bit over a decade before Harvest Moon. Both are human-oriented life sims, but Little Computer People is more of a dollhouse-style experience rather than the life sims we think about today. The game allows you to research and watch a little computer person, which I am sure you've kind of assumed by now. He really is just a human Tamagotchi. You can watch him do his daily motions, interact with him, allow him to stare menacingly at your screen like a soul trapped in a carcass. It really has everything. In any case, it's a low-stakes, calming game, which I say gives it the guts to be our starting point. Harvest Moon is our first farming sim of the bunch though, lighting the way for its 800 future successors. Harvest Moon truly revolutionized and pinpointed this idea of a casual, accessible game, which helped cement it as a real landmark for coziness. It didn't really spur on a bunch of farming sims, though. A few here and there followed, but the pure life sim genre picked up a bit more speed. The Pets games, virtual pet simulators which predated things like Nintendogs, began popping up around 1996 as well, giving a sort of niche part of life sims some of the spotlight for the first time. Virtual pets are technically life sims, just not quite human ones, which is arguably better because in no other lifetime would I want to be a living, breathing person. It is the closest to hell that exists on this earth and I am not enjoying it. The original Sims and Animal Crossing games, both released in the very early 2000s, mark the real shift into cozy life sims becoming more widely recognized. Both games also utilized 3D animation, which is important. We will talk about that in a few minutes. The Sims and Animal Crossing are games that involved social elements with a more open-ended gameplay style, two hallmarks we see plenty in cozy games. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that both series went on to have multiple installments and were no failures. More exploratory, open-world games began to pop up in the mid-2000s. There were a ton of classics made during this era, and there were also maybe 10 more spin-offs for Harvest Moon. This sort of game was hard to find at the time, so it makes sense that the successful players would expand their IP. Not to mention all of the Sims spin-offs. Thinking of will.i.am from The Sims Herbs? What the fuck was that? There are tons of games from the late 2000s and early 2010s that could be considered cozy. Check out my video on all of them right here if you want to hear more. Games like Slime Rancher, Tomodachi Life, Animal Crossing New Leaf, and Stardew Valley were throwing lead-covered bricks at the industry. They weren't anything necessarily unseen, but they were a perfect blend of calm and fun. While Stardew Valley is something else entirely, and we don't have time for that right now, but you know. Although a solid amount of these games made a huge name for themselves, ACNH and COVID kind of spurred off the social media aspect of this trend, and created the huge wave we see now. See, look, we're already at present day. That wasn't too bad of a history, right? Come on, give me some slack. Now, Stardew Valley is the only truly 2D game from the bunch I just mentioned, and it inspired a ton of pixel art games. Pixel art is both easy to get into and adorable, so it's no wonder many people elect to put it in their games. Especially indie development-wise, I mean, come on, it's a no-brainer. It wasn't initially a stylistic choice, rather one made out of necessity. As tech evolved, we started seeing 3D models pop up, and more developers switched to the latest advancement. After games like Stardew, Terraria, and Undertale got incredibly popular, the pixel art style popped back up after a bit of 3D-induced quietness. 2D pixel art wasn't gone in any case, just a bit overpowered. Retro-style games helped it to wake back up. Like I said, this is probably because of the ease of entry, however, it is also a visual choice and a nostalgic one at that. I have gone on and on about nostalgia marketing in the past, so I'll spare you that rant. But pixel art came back in fashion in the late 2010s and early 2020s as well. If you think I'm trying to be dramatic here, there's Coffee Talk, Celeste, Omori, Unpacking, Pico Park, Forager, Littlewood, Little Witch in the Woods, Sticky Business, Cattails, Triangle Strategy, Animal Weld, Apico. Are we getting it? Good, I'll stop. Pixel art games are certainly not the only games being produced right now by any margin, but they have made quite the comeback. We begin with pixel art, then head toward 3D graphics, then back to pixel art, and possibly back to 3D again. The most anticipated cozy releases at the moment seem to be games like Tales of the Shire, Puff Pals, Island Skies, and Echoes of Wisdom, which are all 3D. Obviously, not every game coming out is going to be 3D. I mean, we have Fields of Mystria soon. But we can plot out a bit of a rise in 3D styles. Sizable hits that are already out, such as Little Kitty Big City, Coral Island, and Palia, are also all 3D games. That's pretty much a guess on my part, but I do think that we'll be seeing more and more 3D games pop up in the cozy realm. We can't be sure, but who's sure about anything at this point? Not me. I am just as lost as you are, if not more so. If we see some hints of The Sims 5 or another Animal Crossing title anytime soon, I think that could also jumpstart more 3D games. 3D modeling systems are also becoming more and more accessible to indie developers, so that could be a contributing factor. AAA developers are also way more likely to go the 3D route, so there's that. Anyway, that's mostly a style analysis, which you probably aren't even here for. Let's talk more about the real meat of the games. What might change? There are a lot more indie developers checking into game development in terms of cozy these days. This is great for a multitude of reasons, but a big one is that there's a better chance we'll get more niche, interesting concepts. For example, we can look at Echoes of the Plum Grove. Echoes of the Plum Grove was specifically designed to be a more mature, higher stakes alternative to the traditional farming sim. Characters can die, you can make enemies, and the winter is cold and harsh. It has more of a decision-based playstyle than a simple life-based one, and that is a big breath of fresh air for a lot of people. It maintains a lot of the classic farm sim aspects, but mixes them up a bit for the player who's tired of the usual. Echoes of the Plum Grove was a deviation that paid off. I have seen so many people, both hardcore cozy fans and casual players, absolutely fall in love with this game. Titles like this succeeding helps to open the doors for more interesting and new ideas. A similar story is Cult of the Lamb, which isn't quite a cozy game by definition, but I'd say it counts. Cult of the Lamb is a settlement building sim, sort of, that allows you to dungeon crawl and build up a cult. There are social, farming, and decorating aspects woven into the gameplay, but it remains very casual and light. The writing has an amazing sense of humor, and the developers have kept up with updates and patches. I love the game itself, but all of the heart and soul put into it is really what sold me on Cult of the Lamb. Banger game, but again, a deviation from the cutesy, sentimental games we usually associate with coziness. Cult of the Lamb and Echoes of the Plum Grove also both have interesting visual designs. It's almost paper doll-esque, which gives the games a lot of unique character. Again, you probably want to hear about something else, but it's cool to me, so let me live. Cult of the Lamb also made a big media splash for itself by adding sex to the game. Fun day to have a YouTube channel. Anyways, with the success of these more mature, edgier cozy games, I think we could see a rise in titles with heavier elements to them. There's also, without a doubt, always a trend of people who need to turn cute titles into edgy, dark ones, so that is something to keep in mind. I am not saying I don't like creepy, cozy games at all. I adore them. I just wouldn't be surprised if we got a cozy creepypasta soon. That's all I'm saying. But not everyone is into that sort of thing. Because we've had such an influx in farming sims the past few years, there has been a good amount of internet chatter. People have expressed that they want less farming sims, and hopefully some devs will listen and branch out. In theory, we might start seeing less of those dribble in and get replaced with whatever popular new theme comes up. We're gonna take a look at the most hyped up future releases and see if we can find any hints. Please take notes, this is all going to be on the quiz, and if you don't get an A, I won't love you. Remember the prenup. As I mentioned before, I think Tales of the Shire is one of the most anticipated cozy titles of this year. That is primarily because it calls out to Lord of the Rings fans, but it also does look really adorable. If Tales of the Shire goes over well, which I believe it will, I'm sure it will spur on a lot more franchise-themed games. Disney Dreamlight Valley already paved the way for that sort of thing anyway. Tales is very similar to Animal Crossing in its actual gameplay, decorating, fishing, and gardening. It has a very whimsical, warm look to it, and I think it matches up well with the actual gameplay. The new installment to the series, Fantasy Life, The Girl Who Steals Time, looks promising too. It is a reboot of the 3DS IP, so it'll be very interesting to see where it goes. Just like TV and movies, larger game studios seem to be on a reboot kick at the moment. You know how the saying goes, if it ain't broke, we should bring it back to life and then break it. Okay, studios don't always make their games worse with reboots, but I'm too scarred to not mention it. There are a lot of recent examples, the latest Story of Seasons, which was a callback to the earlier Harvest Moon titles, Endless Ocean, all of that shit. I think reboots are totally fine, but let's just hope they do any future series some justice, and don't leave Nintendogs in the dirt. I've also heard a lot of buzz for Moonlight Peaks, which is a vampire farming sim. The visuals for this game look absolutely stunning, but its release date is set in 2026, so it will likely be quite a while until we see how it's really going to pan out. There is apparently a bartending minigame, so that's fun. Can you get crunk on the farm on a Saturday night? Are you allowed to do that in universe? Mirthwood, which is slated for a September 2024 release, looks beautiful as well. It is a fantasy-style RPG with farming elements. Maybe my hopes for a bit more variety are a little misplaced. A game called The Star Named Eos, though, is looking really fun. It's a lovely looking puzzle game that takes you through family photos to solve a mystery. Puzzlers have been doing super well lately. I've seen so many awesome games. We just got the A Little to the Left DLC as well. Puzzlers also happen to be incredibly accessible, as well as pretty engaging. Sometimes you hate life so much that you just need to feel capable, and you open up a puzzler, and that's where they really shine for me. Europa, a game set on Jupiter's moon of the same name, also looks amazing. I think it shows a lot of what really stands out in new games, that beautiful color, an interesting story. I mean, the trailer looks fantastic. Luma Island and Lia are two other town builder / life sims, both putting their own spin on a pretty classic formula. Luma Island is also a creature collector with little guys called Lumas to collect, and Lia is solarpunk style. With business ownership sims like Supermarket Simulator, Coffee Caravan, and Sticky Business picking up steam, I think we'll see a lot more cozy style job sims. I'd love to see more specifically in the vein of Sticky Business, where there's both responsibility and creative elements present. A lot of job sims can get very repetitive after a bit of gameplay, so I hope we can see their lifespans extended a bit with the same creative vibes. It's a hard line to walk between overly rigid and too loose, but it absolutely can be done. So, with all of that grading information said, what can we glean here from everything put together? What is the future going to look like for cozy games? My best guess, which is truly a slightly informed one, is that the more innovative titles coming out will be on the creepy cute side. Supernatural themed and visibly darker games could be the next smaller trend, but I can't be sure. However, I also think we're going to see an absolute shit ton of branded Animal Crossing knockoffs. There are so many IPs that could do this. If Hello Kitty hadn't already done Hello Kitty Island Adventure, I would have guessed a Sanrio AC spin would be next. But if I had to guess now, I would probably say maybe a Barbie Dreamhouse Builder game done for the Switch or Switch 2, perhaps even a bit of Pokemon settlement building. That could even be present in Legends ZA, we don't know. Like I said, I'm feeling that we're heading more toward a 3D chibi style from what I can see right now. Even games like Fae Farm that have already been released are starting to move toward that, and everyone's opinions will differ in that regard. I don't really give a shit as long as it's a good game, but I'd be very curious to see how you guys feel about styles. One thing I really believe could blow that all out of the water is a release date getting announced for Haunted Chocolatier. I think studios will start rushing to make their own clones of whatever the storyline ends up looking like. Since Stardew Valley spawned such a large number of farming sims, Haunted Chocolatier might do the same with its gameplay style. Hell, it could revitalize the cozy gaming sphere in a completely new way. Obviously, we don't know, but I think it's a big enough contender to be mentioned. The Switch 2 is also a big deal in this case because the Switch was such a catalyst for cozy games. I'm very curious to see how the Switch 2 will actually differ from the original and how that will change what's developed for it. It'll also be interesting to see how things go without COVID, hopefully. At this very moment, there are a lot of games coming out in the same feedback loop. I think at some point there will be a shift away from farming, but I don't know how long that's gonna take. This has also been an incredible couple years for cozy gaming, and a few mundane releases aren't a sign of the end times. If you enjoy a game, it is so important to leave a review on it and tell developers what you thought was good. If you want to sway the future one way or another, give your opinion, share what you enjoy. I know these weren't hugely conclusive predictions, but unfortunately, I am not yet legally God. If you have any predictions of your own, feel free to let me know. If you think I'm annoying and hate my guts, also feel free to let me know. The algorithm loves comments. You know how expensive groceries are, just go ahead and write me a letter. Are there any specific themes or changes you'd like to see in the future? What are your feelings on everything going on in the cozy game realm right now? Anyway, thank you so much for watching, my friends. I really appreciate it. You are wonderful. Thank you to all of my members for your support. It means the world to me. I will see you all next time. Stay safe, stay wonderful, my friends, and goodbye!